Fans watching the live couldn't believe what they had just heard. Screenshots, voice notes, the kind of evidence that doesn't just hint at betrayal, but exposes it in undeniable terms. Jim Jones didn't show them yet, but the fact that he said he had them was enough to send shockwaves through the hip-hop community, and people began searching the internet for any clue that might support Jim's claims. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a mystery unfolding in real time, with Jim Jones at its center. The comments kept coming in, with people tagging Chrissy in every post they could find. But there was radio silence from both of them. No statements, denials, or confirmation. That silence only served to heighten the drama if it wasn't true. Another wrote, "This got real too fast. I feel like we're watching a whole relationship fall apart right in front of us." Jim, however, didn't back down. Later that night, he posted a black screen with a single line in white text that read, "Loyalty over everything, even love." Within minutes, blobs picked it up, and screenshots of his story were all over the place. Fans speculated as to what it meant. Was he done with Chrissy? Was he done with Cam? Most importantly, was this the start of a full-blown fallout between two of hip-hop's most iconic figures? Behind the scenes, Jim reportedly stated that he hadn't been sleeping much, that he'd been pacing, thinking, replaying conversations in his head, and most agonizingly, he still hadn't confronted Chrissy directly, not fully, according to someone. Close to the Jim had only hinted and used metaphors in the hopes that she would confess. But she continued to act as though nothing was wrong, which only made him spiral further. Then, a mysterious anonymous account shared a screen capture of what appeared to be a private event cam with Chrissy standing a little too close. The audio was low and muffled, but you could hear laughter. And then there was a moment when Cam leaned in to whisper something to her. Chrissy's smile lingered too long, and the energy between them was undeniable. The clip went viral in minutes, and fans analyzed it frame by frame. Jim didn't directly acknowledge the clip, but the following day he went live again. This time his tone was calmer, less emotional, and more focused. "I just want the truth," he said calmly. "Not excuses, not lies, just the truth." He didn't mention Maines. He didn't have to, and everyone already knew who he was talking about. He ended the romance abruptly after just 5 minutes, leaving fans with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, Chrissy was under pressure, so she started to hide comments on her recent posts, stopped going live, and didn't show up for a public appearance she had been promoting for weeks. Fans noticed right away that she was hiding someone who commented, "I know Jim isn't playing Cameron." She continued to post as if nothing was happening, including memes and throwback photos. But if you look closely, some of his captions were beginning to feel pointed. For example, he wrote, "Sometimes silence is the loudest response." Fans took that as a direct shot at Jim, implying that Cam wasn't going to feed into the drama in public. But behind closed doors, things were boiling. More insiders started speaking, out anonymously. Of course, one claimed that this wasn't the first time tensions have flared between Jim and Cam over trust issues. "There's always been this underlying competition between them," the source said. "They're brothers, yeah, but they've had their battles, and a woman being in the middle just..." Then, just when things couldn't get any messier, someone close to Chrissy allegedly leaked the text conversation. The messages weren't explicit, but they showed a very cozy, flirty tone between her and Cam. Nothing incriminating, but, again, the timing and the energy all pointed to something deeper. And Jim, well, he posted a cryptic video to the story of just him walking alone through the city at night. No caption, no music. Fans interpreted it as a sign that he was distancing himself from everyone. By now, the narrative had grown bigger than anyone expected. It wasn't just about Chrissy and Cameron anymore. It was about trust, betrayal, and what happens when personal relationships and public lives collide. Fans were split in the most chaotic way, with some supporting Jim and others claiming he was overreacting without evidence. However, it was evident that the damage had been done because fans began making timelines, comparing footage from previous years, and analyzing moments where Chrissy and Cam had even the slightest interaction. Those who had never been interested in Dipset drama were now completely engrossed in the story, treating it as if it were a real-life reality show. Just when everyone thought the storm might subside, Jim did something that rekindled it all. In a separate interview, he was asked about the state of loyalty in the industry. He shook his head and grinned, saying, "Loyalty, I used to think it was real. Now I know better." The interviewer tried to push Jim, but he remained evasive, and the implication was obvious. Meanwhile, Chrissy remained silent, posting no stories or posts, and that silence became the loudest sound in the room. The internet guilt, or if she was simply overwhelmed and waiting for the storm to pass. However, there was one moment that really rocked fans. A leaked audio clip surfaced that purportedly showed Jim speaking on the phone with a member of his inner circle. His voice was heavy and exhausted, and I felt like the last person to know. That line went viral, and fans used it in captions, reactions, and auto-tune remixes. It became the heartbreaking soundbite of the entire thing. Saga. And even though the truth hadn't been fully revealed, the damage was undeniable. Friendships were strained. Trust was broken, and Jim Jones, who was known for his strength and loyalty, seemed more human than ever before. As the city watched, fans analyzed every word and every post, leaving one question hanging in the air. Would Jim forgive them, or was this betrayal too deep to ever come back from the internet? Tensions had been building behind the scenes for weeks, and no one anticipated the Dipset rapper to completely collapse on air during a raw, unscripted segment. Jim dropped a bombshell that left fans gasping, accusing Chrissy of betrayal and hinting at a scandalous night involving none other than Cameron. A frenzy of speculation across social media, with fans desperately trying to piece together what really happened. Was it just a misunderstanding, or is there more to this Cameron and Chrissy connection than anyone realized, with emotions running high, whispers of private conversations, and cryptic posts resurfacing? Everyone's watching to see what comes next as the podcast episode continues to go viral. Jim's words echo across the internet, raw, pained, and drenched in heartbreak. The betrayal he hinted at has opened old wounds, dragged in old friends. And now the entire hip-hop world is watching, waiting, and wondering just how deep this story really goes. The days that followed were thick with tension. No official statements, no clarifications, just silence. And in that silence, fans created their own truths. Threads on social media spiraled into endless theories. Some believed Chrissy had been emotionally distant for months. Others claimed Cam had always carried a hidden torch for her. No one had the answers, but everyone had opinions, and that only added more. Then there was a sudden turn of events. A grainy behind-the-scenes video from a recent music video shoot in which both Cameron and Chrissy were reportedly present was leaked. It showed them having a private conversation off to the side, and the body language was intimate, not romantic, but too close. Chrissy leaned in as Cam whispered something, and she touched his arm briefly before leaving. There was no sound or context, but for a public that was already hungry for scandal, it was enough. Later that same night, Jim posted a single sentence to Twitter. I was always the last to know because fans didn't need an explanation. They had already connected the dots within minutes, and it was trending not just in hashtags but also in edited clips, commentary videos, and fan art. Rumors were now spreading like wildfire. One insider claimed Jim had hired a private investigator weeks ago when he first got suspicious. Another said he had already confronted Chrissy off camera and that it didn't go well. Nothing could be confirmed, but the lack of denial only made people believe it more. Chrissy's friends allegedly tried to reach out to her, but she wasn't answering calls. Her social media remained dormant, an unusual silence for someone who normally posted regularly. Cameron, however, continued to act, unfazed. He uploaded a series of photos from an old tour, smiling with fans, flashing jewelry, and writing cryptic captions like, "Some stories don't need explaining." Fans were torn. Was he trolling, deflecting, or was this all just a coincidence? Either way, his refusal to deny or defend only deepened the suspicion behind closed doors. Things were unraveling. Jim's inner circle, once tight and loyal, began fracturing. Some sided with him. Others quietly tried to stay neutral, not wanting to get caught in the crossfire. One of Jim's longtime friends reportedly told a blog that I've never seen Jim this broken, and this betrayal hit him differently because it came from both his brother and his woman. The emotional weight was evident in Jim's demeanor during a surprise guest appearance at a charity event. When a fan asked him if he was okay, he just nodded and continued to walk without saying anything or smiling. Then, in yet another blow, a former close friend of Chrissy's who hadn't spoken to the media in years revealed that she had once seen an awkward moment between Chrissy and Cam during a private party back in 2018. "I didn't think much of it then," she said. "But looking back now, it all makes sense again. Nothing solid, but enough to keep the fire burning." Jim felt cornered at last. In a recent live video, he broke his silence once more. This time, he wasn't yelling or accusing. Instead, he was calm. "I'm not saying names, but when you give someone your loyalty and they treat you like a fool, it changes you." His voice cracked once, barely, when he said, "Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the worst." He ended the live after just 6 minutes. There was no music or background noise, just him and a look that said it all. Fans who had been divided began to rally behind him. Trending celebrities started liking his posts, and some who had remained silent started posting cryptic messages of support. The energy had changed. It wasn't just gossip anymore. People saw a man, broken, and it touched a nerve. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Chrissy was allegedly attempting to contact Jim. According to a source familiar with the matter, she sent him several texts and voice notes in an attempt to calm things down, but he didn't respond. Some said he wasn't ready, while others thought he was completely stupid. The press began circling blogs and publishing timelines in an attempt to determine when the alleged affair may have begun, revisiting and dissecting old interviews for clues, including instances where Chrissy smiled at Cam a bit too often and when Jim's body language seemed strange. While emotions remained raw, fans played detectives, and Cam's silence started to work against him. At one point, it appeared to be indifference, but now it appeared to be avoidance. Fans demanded answers, saying, "You owe Jim the truth." Real men don't hide. They speak up. However, Cam remained silent, and instead shared a picture of himself and Jim from the early days of Dipset with the caption, "Brothers fight, but blood is always thicker." This was the first time he had indirectly acknowledged the situation, and at the very least, it exacerbated the division. Was it an attempt to deflect or make peace, or was it a ploy? Fans were split, and Jim in particular didn't interact, repost, like, or comment. Instead, he posted another cryptic story, this time with the quote, "Sometimes the bond you thought was unbreakable was already broken. You just didn't see it." A bombshell email that purportedly came from months ago between Chrissy and her close friend David was leaked. In it, she vented about feeling emotionally distant from Jim and acknowledged that Cam understood her in ways that Jim never did. The email wasn't verified, but it spread like wildfire, making fans feel betrayed all over again. Jim again chose not to respond directly, but that night he posted an old clip from a concert in which he and Cam were performing on stage, arms around each other, grinning with the caption, "Those were the days." Fans took that one post as a farewell, a silent farewell to the bomb that once was, and Chrissy felt too much pressure. Were relentless and flooded her DMs. Her comments demanded answers, some offering sympathy, others calling her out. And somewhere, in all of this chaos, one truth remained, that once trust is broken, it is nearly impossible to put it back together. Whether the affair happened or not, or whether the rumors were fabricated, one thing was certain. Jim felt betrayed, and that feeling, once it settles in, is hard to erase. Whether they would recover from it remained a mystery, and for fans waiting for updates, it was the most emotional saga they'd seen in a long time. Even longtime fans didn't see it coming. With every passing day, more people were drawn into the emotional whirlwind. Even those who didn't usually follow hip-hop drama found themselves captivated by the unfolding situation. It had gone beyond entertainment. It felt personal to many, like watching a family fall apart in real time. Jim's demeanor shifted further. He stopped posting selfies, stopped promoting his projects, and even pulled out of 2 scheduled appearances. Sources close to him said he wasn't eating right, wasn't sleeping much, and had completely shut down communication with everyone except his mother and a few childhood friends. One even claimed he'd been spending his nights driving around the city trying to clear his head, blasting old Dipset tracks that once symbolized unity and brotherhood. Meanwhile, Chrissy's silence continued to speak louder than words. She was seen once briefly outside a cafe in Harlem wearing large sunglasses and a hoodie pulled low. Paparazzi managed to snap a few blurry photos, and while she didn't say anything, Her expression was heavy, as if she was carrying more than just regret. Rumors circulated that she had been told by her team to keep quiet until things calmed down, but fans were not letting that go. One fan even dug up an old interview from years ago in which Chrissy had called Cam family. Fans were twisting that line, calling it a code word, saying it had all been in plain sight the entire time. Then came the podcast, which was supposed to be a laid-back, low-key episode of a show Jim had agreed to appear on months earlier. The hosts were friends, and the atmosphere was casual, but what happened live on air would go viral online in a matter of minutes. Jim arrived quiet and subdued. He wore dark sunglasses, kept his hood up, and hardly smiled for the first 20 minutes. The conversation was lighthearted, discussing music memories and past performances, but the host casually asked about loyalty, referring to how the industry can sometimes test friendships. Jim paused. He leaned forward, removed his glasses, and stared directly into the camera. "Loyalty isn't what it used to be," he said in a steady, low voice. "People will smile in your face, call you brother, and ask you dirty things behind closed doors. The worst part is that you don't even find out from them. You find out from the streets." The host went silent, and no one dared to interrupt. Jim wasn't shouting, nor was he angry, but there was something in his tone that made it seem colder than if he had screamed. Imagine sharing your dreams, your home, and your heart with someone, building everything together, and then waking up one day and realizing it was all just temporary, a setup betrayal in disguise. He continued. The chat section of the podcast blew up instantly. Comments poured in faster than the host could even read. Fans typed things like, "He's discussing Christy and Cam, and this is devastating." One of the hosts tried to change the subject by asking if Jim thought there was any chance of reconciliation. Jim didn't hesitate, saying, "Some things break too deep, and I don't want apologies. I want peace, and peace doesn't come from people who lie to you with a straight face." While others begged him to clarify, Jim didn't need to name names because everyone already knew. When the episode's live-ended clips went viral, fans created compilations, reaction videos, and even heartfelt tributes to Jim's pain and loyalty once more. For the first time, even those who had defended Chrissy started to change their minds, but things weren't finished yet. A few hours after the podcast aired, an audio recording purportedly taken by someone else surfaced. The video, which was taken during a private disagreement between Jim and Chrissy a few weeks ago, showed sounds that were remarkably similar to their own. It was intense and emotional, and Chrissy could be heard saying, "I never meant for things to go that far." Jim retorted, "But you allowed him to come that close." Chrissy's team quickly denied the recording was real, claiming it had been manipulated, but many fans weren't buying it. They said the voices were unmistakable, and the emotions were too real to be fake, whether it was authentic or not. The public had already made their decision, and Cameron remained silent, so thousands of people flooded his most recent post, demanding that he speak up. Eventually, Cam posted a video to the story, which wasn't a statement but simply him in the studio, bobbing his head to an unreleased song with lyrics. Fans took the cryptic statement, "Never trust a heart that flinches when it's time to ride," as a jab. "I know there's been a lot said, and I know people have made up their minds about me," Chrissy said in a shaky live video without makeup, her eyes tired, her voice trembling. "But not everything you see is the full story." She didn't explicitly deny the rumors, but she did say, "People grow apart sometimes, connections shift, and sometimes what you think is innocent turns into something you can't explain." Her words were ambiguous, but the emotions behind them were genuine. She didn't cry, but her voice cracked multiple times as she concluded the live stream, saying, "I love Jim with all my heart. I never wanted to hurt him, but I can't pretend things were perfect when they weren't." The internet went wild again, with some fans expressing sympathy and accusing her of avoiding responsibility. One comment read, "This isn't an apology, it's a cover-up." Jim remained silent once more, with no post or reaction, but sources close to him said he watched the live stream and that he sat through the entire thing without saying a word. After the show ended, he simply got up and walked outside for more than an hour without a phone or music, just him and his thoughts. Meanwhile, Cam was reportedly unfazed. Insiders claimed he found the whole situation overblown and had no plans to clarify anything. He believed the truth would eventually reveal itself, and until then, he wasn't about to fuel the fire. But fans weren't letting it go. A movement started. Literally, a small group of gym supporters organized a loyalty walk in Harlem, holding signs that read, "Real ones don't cheat," and "Truth over fame." It wasn't a massive protest, but it made headlines and reminded everyone just how deep the public's emotional investment had become. And through all of this, one question remained unanswered. Would Jim ever forgive them? Because while the internet thrives on drama and spectacle, what made this story hit different was the history behind it. Jim, Chrissy, and Cam weren't just names. They were a family built on years of shared dreams, love, and loyalty. And when that kind of foundation cracks, the pieces don't fall quietly. They shatter, and the sound echoes everywhere. While fans were still processing Chrissy's emotional life, another twist landed like a grenade. After an anonymous tipster contacted a popular gossip blog and claimed to have screenshots of conversations between Chrissy and Cameron that suggested something more than friendship, the blog shared a blurry screenshot of what appeared to be Cam saying, "You know it was never just a vibe between us." Chrissy responded, "Stop. We said we wouldn't talk about that night again. The internet lost its mind." Fans were incredulous, and even celebrities began to react subtly on their own platforms. One rapper posted a cryptic tweet that read, "Some people break bread, others break trust," while a reality TV star shared a throwback photo of Jim and Chrissy with the caption, "Damn, never thought I'd see the day." Even though the screenshots couldn't be verified and the blog itself added a disclaimer, the public's perception had changed, and what had once been just rumors was now being treated as confirmed betrayal. The idea of that night became a mystery that fans couldn't stop speculating about what actually happened. Did Jim know about it before it went public? Jim, for the third time, didn't directly respond, but he posted a photo to the story that spoke volumes. A single image of him gazing out at the skyline with the caption, "Energy doesn't lie." It was quiet but cutting, poetic, and painful. That same night, Chrissy was seen leaving a restaurant with a longtime friend, and paparazzi bombarded her with questions about the screenshots. Her response was succinct and direct, saying, "Believe what you want. I know my truth." Some people interpreted this as defiance, while others saw it as a confession wrapped in pride. Meanwhile, Cameron remained completely unflappable in public, but noticeably more subdued online, going 2 days without posting anything online. When he did, it was just a black screen with the words, "Let the loud ones talk." Supporters of Team Jim were more united than ever, reposting old photos of him and Chrissy from their days on the reality show, captioned, "He deserves better." A smaller but vocal group defended Chrissy, claiming that people change and relationships end for a variety of reasons, but what really brought the drama to a head was the leaked voice note. The voice note, which was allegedly recorded by a mutual friend who was present during a private argument, featured a female voice that was thought to be Chrissy sobbing and saying, "I didn't mean to fall for him. It just happened."